Good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. And I guess for Mr. Bonzel, this is our first face-to-face board meeting together. Welcome again, and thank you, Charlie. First up on the meeting today is the Property Committee, and I'll recognize Chairman Mudge.
Thanks, Chairman Ray. I'd like to call the Property Committee to order. We have one presentation by Dan Campbell presented this morning for us. And before we do that, we need to adopt the minutes of the June 24th meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion? And a second.
Mr. Chairman, one very minor correction, just for the sake of accuracy. If I could be slid from others present to council committee members present. I've been off on this committee, and back on the committee. So just to make sure that everything's accurate with that one correction.
Okay, so we have a modified motion. Any other comments, discussion? If not, all in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, so moved. And now, Dan Camp. Good morning. I guess I could turn that on.
I guess y'all have a package with you. Here we go. What we're here to talk about today is a request for surplus designation on a 4-acre site in Monk's Corner. It is a piece of property that Santee Cooper has owned for quite some time. We've leased it to Change Lives Ministries for the operation of a alcohol and rehabilitation center. The lease has been at a commercial rate. We've leased it to them for 15 years. During that 15-year period, they have performed in several site improvements, including a parking lot, some dormitories, some offices, some recreation facilities. And it's an isolated parcel behind Walmart, so it has no public road frontage and no public utilities to it. Access to the site is through another piece of property we own and lease to the Berkeley County for the operations of Emergency Training Center. It is located in Monk's Corner, as said previously, and here it is in relationship to downtown Monk's Corner. Here's the property itself behind Walmart. As you can see, it's outlined in yellow. It's also adjacent to the Berkeley County Training Center, and that's where they do some of their fire training, et cetera. So it's an isolated parcel. Here's some of the site improvements that are on the property itself, some modular buildings, some modular like office building, dormitory, collection of office buildings, dormitories, and other structures. The private drive is the frontage that you see when you come in off the shared driveway, and here's the frontage off of, in the bottom right corner is the frontage off the public road. So it's kind of hidden parcel back there. Change Lives has received funding that will enable them to purchase a property and make significant additional improvements to it. And property management determined the property is no longer needed for our operations, and consistent with our policies, upon approval, we plan to sell the property to Change Lives Ministries. We recommend that the board declare the 4-acre surplus, enable us to sell it to Change Lives Ministries at market value.
For those of you who aren't aware of the Change Lives Ministry, they do such an awesome job. There's an organization called Hope Repair that goes out to repair places that are falling down and not livable. These gentlemen can come out on a Saturday morning when it's 95 degrees outside and put a wheelchair ramp up in no time at all. It is amazing how many people in Berkeley County are homebound because they cannot get out of their homes, and we owe a great deal to Change Lives Ministry. So I am very, very grateful for you all for working this out.
Okay, questions of Dan? Anybody have a motion to move forward? Have a motion? Have a second? Second. Have a second. Any other questions? You got an order of magnitude on the sales price?
The appraised value on the price is $9,000 an acre for $36,500. We've had that appraisal performed in December, so it's very recent appraisal.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, the motion is approved from committee and will go to the board. With that said, we'll hereby adjourn the property committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Next on the agenda is the Financial Planning and Risk Committee, and I will call that committee to order at this time and ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. First up, and actually only thing up, will be the insurance update presentation by Pamela Williams. Excellent. Good morning, Shawan.
Good morning, Chairman Ray. Good morning, Chairman Ray, lady, gentlemen of the board, executive staff. You have before you the annual insurance update. That's okay, I don't have a presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions you have. Thank you very much. I'm around all day if any questions do arise. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if I'm reading this right, that was our only presentation in the financial, so no questions on the insurance requirements? You know, one of the things that I found interesting, and we'll hear a little bit more about it in the Dikes and Dams report, and that is that the risk that we have in our floodplain associated with our dikes and dams is a risk that's essentially uninsurable beyond very limited amounts. And well, as I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but just to keep in mind that the amount of insurance that we have to cover downstream flooding is fairly limited in our insurance portfolio. Okay, with that, I'll adjourn the Financial Planning and Risk Committee and call the Executive Corporate Planning Committee to order. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved.
Motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. First, oh, that's Director Finn on the phone now. Thank you, Bill. First up will be the generation report, and I'll call on Mark Ty for that.
Mr. Chairman, I got Tommy Curtis here, our VP of Generation, and he's going to give you a brief update on the report and answer any questions.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have the facilities report in your board packet, and so I'm not going to go page by page on that. But there are a few noteworthy items, I would say, from Generation for the past year I'd like to point out. First, we've had a significant increase in our renewable portfolio. We, as you all know, we signed PPA agreements to expand our solar capacity to a pretty big number for us, 158 megawatts. So we're pretty excited about that. That's a good development for us as a company. We also completed major construction to bring Cross Station and Wynya Station into compliance with CCR regulations. That's been a big project as well, and we're happy to see that work come to a close, and we're ready to be in compliance there. The other regulation that's still out there is the ELG, and we are still waiting for that to become finalized. So we have folks engaged with that, and we'll be watching as that develops. And last thing I'd like to point out is Generation has stayed really engaged in the continuous improvement effort here at Santee Cooper. We've had our folks participate in a number of projects that have saved our customers a lot of money. So I'm really proud of that. So far, to date, Generation-led projects or initiatives have saved $2.4 million toward our corporate goal of $3 million. So Generation continues to be a really big part of the CI movement. So those are the things that I'm proud of that we've done this year, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Any
Thank you.
questions? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next up, I'll call on Pamela Williams for the Dikes and Dams report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Johnson, who is our manager of construction services, is here, and this is the first year that Mike's in this role before you to answer your questions and tell you about the dams and dikes report. He and his team are the ones that make sure that uninsurable doesn't happen. They work hard every day.
Thank you, Pamela. Good morning.
Morning.
As Pamela said, my name is Mike Johnson. I work in the Construction Services Department, and one of our responsibilities is the oversight, upkeep, and maintenance of Santee Cooper's 40 miles of dams and dikes. In your package, you should have the 2019 annual report for dams and dikes, and this morning, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the report by sharing some of the highlights. In the first 3 pages of the report, the 40 miles of dams and dikes is broken into 2 systems, the Panopolis system and the Santee system. If you're not as familiar with the dams and dikes, those first 3 pages show the physical location and the physical attributes of each of these systems. A few of the highlights in the report that I'd like to draw your attention to are the following. Number 1, in 2018, we experienced Hurricane Florence in September and Hurricane Michael in October. And although other parts of the state were impacted by these storms, the 40 miles of dams and dikes, fortunately, were not impacted. Number 2, as you may be aware, we are under the regulatory authority of FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. FERC comes and inspects our system at least once every year, and they are scheduled to be here the week of September 16th for this year's inspection. Number 3, in the same week, that week of September 16th, we're scheduled to conduct our annual Dam Failure Emergency Action Plan drill. This drill will be a tabletop drill simulating a failure of the North Dam. FERC and other state and local entities will be there to participate in the drill. Number 4, FERC has a new requirement that we evaluate all structures on the Panopolis system for breach. In the past, we have only evaluated the east and west dams for these conditions, but now we're evaluating the dikes as well. The outcome could be new hazard classifications for the east and west dikes, and if the hazard classifications change from low to high, which is what is currently being proposed, this would likely result in the need for some structural modifications or improvements downstream. However, there is still further modeling to be done and further meetings and discussions with FERC before anything is finalized. Last highlight I want to share with you, number 5, is that we are in process of evaluating the condition of the 62 gates at the spillway. These are the original gates that were installed in the 40s. Santee Cooper has done a good job keeping up with these gates and extending the life of the gates through a robust maintenance program. However, we are now studying these gates to begin to develop a plan for future replacements. So in summary, Santee Cooper's 40 miles of dams and dikes are in good condition, and I'll have more to share with you in the future on the outcome of some of these studies. Before I open up for questions, I was asked to give you a quick update on the status of the Granger Ash Pond project. Construction Services is one of the many departments involved in this project to remove ash and soil from the ponds. So I'll start with pond number 1. This is the pond that's nearest the courthouse. All ash has been removed, and almost all of the contact soil has been removed. And as of early this month, I'm proud to share with you that all testing has been completed, and we are in the process of preparing our final submittal to DHEC. We're also in process of working to get a wetlands design completed so that we can turn Pond 1 into a wetland by the end of this year. Pond 2, this somewhat parallels 501. All ash has been removed, and a contractor is in process of removing contact soil right now. They're about halfway done. We're in process of beginning the testing phase. All contact soil should be removed out of the pond by the end of this year, with plans to convert Pond 2 into a wetland in the first half of 2020. This concludes my update on dams and dikes and the Granger ponds. Do you have any questions for me?
Chris, I have kind of an unfair question. It was noted in the report that Santee Cooper is the only licensee required to do the full-scale exercises every 5 years.
Yes,
Do we
ma'am.
have any idea why?
So I would caveat my response with this. I'm in my 5th month
I understand.
in the role. But that is a good question, and my understanding is because in the past, studies were done and modifications were actually done to the East Dam and the West Dam, but the North Dam, a decision was made to not invest the money to add stability for a seismic event, because the cost of modifications far exceeded the cost of the property or the value of the property downstream. That's what I'm told. So, because of that, we have a very comprehensive emergency action plan. And the outcome of that is, through FERC, we have a requirement to do that full-scale emergency action plan drill at least once every 5 years to demonstrate that we have precautions in place in case there was a dam failure.
Well,
Just let me add to that, because what Mike said is absolutely right. But this was a decision made back in the 80s in conjunction with FERC. So looking at the cost of structural modifications were made on the Pinopolis system. But on the Santee system, considering the cost and the impact downstream, which was not significant, not developed a lot of its national forests. So that was not just a unilateral decision that Santee Cooper made. That was in conjunction with FERC. The decision was made on that system to put this emergency action plan in place where we notify downstream people who are downstream in the floodplain. It's a slow inundation that would occur, so lives are not in jeopardy from this. I just want to be clear that it was a joint decision that was sanctioned by the federal government.
I still remember 1984 when that alarm went out and we all had to evacuate and there were helicopters and all sorts of things. It was like science fiction. It was very frightening. And I have a vested interest because I understand my house would be under about 28 feet of water.
Your house is downstream of a dam where that was
I know.
remediated, I'll say. So that one's has been fixed, yes.
Just checking. Work on those floodgates, Chris, okay?
So what's the problem?
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the Executive Corporate Planning Committee. I'll adjourn that committee. And at this time, I will call on Chairman Land to oversee the Legal Affairs Committee.
Thank you very much. I'll call the Legal Affairs Committee to order. And let me get to my first order of business on the agenda is adoption of the minutes from the last meeting. We have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Minutes are adopted. Looks like we have nothing else for an open agenda for the Legal Affairs Committee, but I do see a need here for an executive session. And at this time, I'll ask for a motion for the committee to go into executive session to receive legal advice relating to new nuclear construction project litigation, legal advice relating to the Central Coordination Agreement, legal advice and discussions surrounding proposed contractual arrangements relating to the VC Summer Units 2 and 3, and legal advice and discussions incident to proposed contractual arrangements related to House Bill 4287. Do I have a motion? We go in for those stated purpose. Got a motion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're in executive session, and we'll let Mike and Babs and others.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Legal Affairs Committee has voted to go into executive session for purposes permitted under FOIA. We ask that visitors step from the room while the executive session occurs, and we will welcome you back as soon as possible.
All right, I'll close the Legal Affairs Committee out. We have arisen from executive session. No action was taken in the executive session of the Legal Affairs Committee. At this point in time, do I have a motion that we adjourn the Legal Affairs Committee? A second. All in favor? The Legal Affairs Committee's adjourned.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Land. And at this time, I will call the regularly scheduled board meeting to order. And the first order of business will be the invocation. For that, I'll ask Mr. Mike Baxter to lead us.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, let us pray. Our Father, we thank you for the many blessings in our lives that allow us to be present today. Those present in person as well as joining us by remote means. We're grateful for the strength, the health, and the presence of mind that allow us to discharge the responsibilities that are upon us. We pray your further blessings on our efforts for the state of South Carolina and indeed the nation, and that we might continue to be a leading resource to improve the quality of life for all South Carolinians. We're grateful for these blessings that we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
May we pledge allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First order of business will be to adopt the minutes of three separate meetings: the June 24th, 2019 meeting, the July 9th, 2019 meeting, and the July 17th, 2019 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting?
So moved.
Motion, second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. At this time, I'll call on Chairman Mudge to report on the Property Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Property Committee met early this morning and approved the resolution 49 concerning the declaration of surplus property, 4.05 acres in Moncks Corner. Now presenting to the board for approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. And at this time, I'll call on Pamela Williams to make the financial and line of business report.
Mr. Chairman, Suzanne Ritter, our controller, will make with
Good afternoon. I'm here to give you the report on the second quarter ending June 30th, 2019, our financial report. And just a brief update, no significant changes since our last quarterly report. We'll talk about the balance sheet, the earnings statement, and then customer impacts. So while the numbers have changed slightly, the drivers are really the same drivers that we had the last quarter when we met. So if we take a look at our balance sheet and we're comparing June 30th of 2019 back to June 30th of 2018. A little bit of a change in utility plant, and that was really being driven by solid waste landfill construction that's going on, or capital work that's going on. The biggest item you'll see there is the change in the total current assets and also a change in long-term debt. And those really offset each other. The current asset change is where we used up some of our Toshiba funds to defease some of our debt. And you'll see a corresponding change in the debt account as well there. We're also, under current assets, are burning down our fuel stockpile, so that's contributing to that change as well. And again, on the regulatory liability, that larger change there on the Toshiba, that's where we're amortizing that liability. So we did not recognize the gain when we had the Toshiba settlement. We recognize that as we use it towards the debt. Okay, thank you. So the next item here we have are some of our key financial metrics that the rating agencies will look at. These are not all of the metrics they will look at. These are the financial metrics. And you can see that for two of the metrics, the comparison of rates and then also the debt to equity, we fall right in where we would want to fall in for an A rating category. For the other two metrics, liquidity on hand, we're significantly higher than where we would need to be for the A rating category. And then on the debt service coverage, we're a little bit lower than where we would want to be for the A rating category, but there's some offsets there between those two. If we move on to our capital construction account, you can see that we are a little bit below budget to date. That gap has tightened a little bit from the last quarter, and it's not untypical for us to run a little bit below on capital, and we'll catch up as the year goes on. So we'll move on to our reinvested earnings statement. And first of all, on revenues, we can see that our revenues are down slightly from what we had budgeted for our revenues. And that's really being driven by two things. First of all, weather has been a little bit milder this year, so we have fewer sales. And the other driver is our fuel costs have come down, and we pass that fuel cost directly through to our customers, so that has brought the revenues down from the customers because of that fuel savings passing through to them. The next item is our combined expenses, and you can see that fuel change here. You can see our fuel cost is below budget. We're also a little bit lower on O&M expenses, and a good bit of that is timing. There's some timing on outages at our plants, and so we should see a good bit of that catch up by the end of the year. So now we'll move on to our fuel by fuel type. And you can see that we've had a few shifts in fuel by fuel type, a little bit less coal and a little bit, a little bit less coal and a little bit more on the purchase power side. So we've taken advantage of the markets there. And if we look at our total fuel price year to date, we're about 5% below budget.
So, but can you back up that? Mm-hmm. So just since you kind of went through this pretty quickly, I just wanted to point out that negative 71 down at the bottom is $71 million in fuel savings.
No, sir. That's actually generation. So those are the gigawatt hours. So okay. So we have 71 million less gigawatt hours. I don't think I have the fuel dollars up here, and we won't typically look at it that way because we also had lower sales. But from a rate standpoint, our rate is about 5% below what we had budgeted the rate to be, or the price. That's June. Yes, that's through June. So
just basically, if I look at the little box at the top right, what you've been doing is you've basically not generated excess power with coal at $3.39 a megawatt, and you've purchased power in the market at 2.96. So that savings just passes through directly to the customers.
That's correct. And then the coal itself was lower than budgeted as well.
Exactly.
So we saved on the coal, and then we also took advantage of the purchase power prices.
Great.
Okay, so all of that pulls together in our reinvested earnings statement, and year-to-date, our reinvested earnings are a little bit higher than what we had budgeted those to be. So now we'll move over to customer impact. There's very little difference on the customer impact. The biggest difference is the numbers that we just looked at included depreciation, and this is more of a rate impact, and so we would include debt service here, but all of the other numbers you're going to see similar changes to what we saw on the other slides. Now, if we move down to the bottom and we look at the total cost per kilowatt hour, so that's the total price for our all-in price, you can see that we're below budget there, and that's about 3.5% below budget year to date. Lastly, we'll move on to our water system. We have a little bit of a difference on debt service on our water system. There was a defeasance that had been planned that has not taken place yet. And then our O&M costs are a good bit below budget for the water system as well. And so that translates into a lower cost per thousands of gallon in the water system. So again, below budget there. That's it. Do I have any questions?
No questions? Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay. At this time, I'll call on Mark Bonsall for the President's report.
I'll be brief because I know the most important item is next on the agenda, but I do want to say thank you again on behalf of Mary. I'm sure I speak for Charlie and Renee as well. We find Santee Cooper to be financially strong, its service, safety, and reliability to be excellent. It's got great people, wonderful support from you, the board. We love Monk's Corner and Pinopolis, so thank you for the opportunity to be here and work with you. Thanks. I've had, in the last 40 days or so, however long I've been here, a very large number of introductory meetings with stakeholders, so that's been keeping me quite busy. I did suspend, as I think you received the email a while back, the operation of the ELT, the Executive Leadership Team, and I replaced it with a new team that reports to me, a smaller team that's focused on developing the business plan for, or a new business plan for Santee Cooper. We've had an extensive number of meetings with experts from the Department of Administration pursuant to that process, which is forthcoming. There was supposed to be an executive committee meeting scheduled in the middle of this month. It was postponed. It was postponed at Rob Hochstetler's suggestion. I agreed with that suggestion because two of the principal items that were on that agenda, one of them was an audit issue that had been hanging around since the year 2014. The other was the joint view of the Effingham public or purchase power agreement proposal, which both parties concluded was not fruitful for the system at this point in time, so that item could be accepted from the agenda. Those two items were taken off. As a result, the meeting was in fact postponed, and I agree with that. Am I correct, Jim, on the typification of the Effingham conclusion? Great, thank you. Moody's confirmed our A2 rating, as you know. We have initiated an employee brainstorming process internally to harvest ideas on savings suggestions going forward. We've received about 1,000 of those suggestions, a lot of them extremely good, and it's a very active and beneficial, I'd say, process. I did meet with the Post and Courier editorial board after the publication of my op-ed piece. I'm scheduled to meet with them again sometime in the early part of September. I'm scheduled to meet with the state on August 26th as well, so I would expect some coverage as a result thereof. I attended and spoke at the Trident United Way kickoff on August 13th. It was a great opportunity to meet a number of employees at Santee Cooper. Richard Kaiser, as you know, retired on August 9th, and we had a nice function for Richard, well attended, and I wish him nothing but the best in his future. And then lastly, is this going to pop up here, Sandra?
You want that picture?
I do.
Okay.
Congratulations to Mike Baxley. Go, we got to get the timing down here, Sandra. We got to get the timing down.
There you go.
There you go. He had a new son born August 8th, 2019. I believe his name is William. Sadly, to some degree, he looks in this picture like his dad, but there's time to there's time to recover from. There's time. It'll get better over the course of time. How much? 9 pounds plus? 9 pounds and 1 ounce. Well, congratulations to you. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got to report today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have one more item on the agenda for today, and that's a resolution recognizing the service of Jim Brogdon. And so just to sort of preface that, as you all know, Jim has been part of Santee Cooper for a long time. He came here in 2005 as general counsel, was promoted to general counsel, and then retired in 2014, and came back in October of 2017 when Mr. Carter retired, and we had a void in leadership at the CEO level, and Jim basically agreed to come out of retirement to help us move through the process that we've been working our way through, and left basically the 9th of July of this year. And so we wanted to ask him back, and want to thank Pam for being here, and Jim's granddaughter as well for being here. And I won't, we have a resolution. It's in your board packages. For those of you here, I've covered the first page in my comments, but what I want to read to you is the second page, which I think is some of the things that I want to highlight. It says, whereas James E. Brogdon Jr.'s wise counsel, good judgment, and steady, calm demeanor has been invaluable to Santee Cooper, and whereas he has been a goodwill ambassador for Santee Cooper and has represented Santee Cooper in a sincere, positive, and favorable manner throughout his tenure, whereas James E. Brogdon Jr. is recognized as a man of great knowledge and integrity, has earned the admiration and respect of his friends, peers, business associates, the employees of Santee Cooper, and this board of directors. The board of directors and president and chief executive officer of Santee Cooper desires to acknowledge and honor the exemplary contributions made in service to Santee Cooper and the state of South Carolina by James E. Brogdon Jr. as interim president and CEO. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board of directors hereby expresses to James E. Brogdon Jr. and Pam Brogdon and his granddaughter its genuine and heartfelt thanks, best wishes, and prayers for continued good health, prosperity, and happiness. And just in summary, obviously, we have a great debt of gratitude to Jim for his leadership and service to Santee Cooper. And I think it's fair to say we all know that that Jim thinks a lot of the employees of Santee Cooper and the company and the history of Santee Cooper, and was a great ambassador for Santee Cooper and everything he did. So we want to personally thank you for that, Jim. And as you would expect, we have a little memento for you as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for acknowledging Pam's contribution to this team effort. She was obviously as connected to what was going on with Santee Cooper as I have been, and followed closely all of the perils that we experienced over the course of the last 2 years. And on top of that, she had to be grandmother and granddaddy to our now 4 grandchildren over the course of the last 2 years. So thank you for acknowledging her contribution to that. I just can't tell you enough how much I appreciate the honor that you've given me to serve Santee Cooper over the last 2 years now. It's a great organization. Mark sums it up. It's great people. It's a long-standing, great reputation. I'm confident that at the end of this process, Santee Cooper will be fine. And Santee Cooper and its employees will be fine. So I'm honored to have served with the 1,650 women and men who are Santee Cooper. It is they, frankly, who deserve the praise for what has happened over the last 2 years. Because day in and day out, they have come to work, they've kept their head down, they fulfilled their commitment to the mission of Santee Cooper, and they're still here, in spite of all the uncertainty. So we owe them all a great debt of gratitude. I am proud to have had the opportunity to work with them. Thank you all for the support you've given me over the last 2 years. I'll miss you. But I can tell you that I'm trading titles. I'm no longer judge. I'm no longer interim CEO. I'm now Poppy. and I'm proud to wear that title. And some of you also have grandchildren know how precious that is. So we'll continue to follow closely what goes on at Santee Cooper, and our heart will be with you. And when people say things that aren't favorable about Santee Cooper, we'll hurt, and we'll be upset with that just as you are, and we'll be looking forward to those positive comments at the end of this process. So thank you very much. Thank you for the very good.
Well, while you're standing, that adjourns the meeting. We stand adjourned.